Happy Thursday, and thank you for joining us on another episode of Theology on Thursday. I am Dr. Micah C, and I'm just thankful that you took time out of your busy life to come and be a part of Theology on Thursday. Thank you. Now listen, I need you to do me a favor, as I ask on every episode. Share the gospel. That's right. Share the good news of this podcast with everybody that you know, everybody that's in your immediate network sphere, contact list, friend list, followers. Share it with all of them so that they too can experience a happy Thursday. But more importantly than just a happy Thursday, we want everybody to have a happy life. So thank you for joining us. You know that this is a podcast. This is a space where we move theology off the bookshelf and we move it into the hearts of our daily living, into the lives of our daily living, into the actions of our daily living. We want people to know that we've got a deep, meaningful relationship with God and that it exudes in all that we do. And so this is the space. This is that space where we come together, where we wrestle every episode with the questions of life and faith and hope through real, open, and honest conversations. Yeah, I know, simply put, theology is really the study of God, but there's so much more to it than that. What about our experiences? What about our practices? What about our faith? And so it is my hope and intention that we can see how to apply what we study, what we know, what we experience into our own daily lives. Hey, James Cone said it best, that theology must be contextual, that it arises from lived experiences, and I would add living experiences. And so we want to add to your theology. We want to make your theology come alive right here through these episodes of Theology on Thursday. And so today, we're going to talk a little bit about faith. Faith to work, faith at work, and faith through work. This is Dr. Micah Sims. This is Theology on Thursday. So the theme for today's episode is faith to work, faith at work, and faith that works. And so here are my thoughts. I think one of the jobs of the church, particularly for those of us who are pastors and leaders in the church, is to not only encourage people and inspire people to live out their faith and increase their faith on Sunday, but is the actual living out of that faith Monday through Saturday. Obviously, we spend more time outside of corporate worship on Sunday than we do in worship on Sunday. And so that may be part of the goal of church ministries and pastors and leaders is how do we get people to live out faithful lives every single day? We know that the Bible says faith without works is dead. And so we need a faith that works. And so I'm hopeful on today's podcast that we would really think about what is it that makes my faith active? What is it that makes my faith work? What does my faith at work look like? Here's another interesting thing. Do I express my faith at work? Because there are many people who occupy our pews, our chairs within our worship settings that work. And I would hope that you have faith showing, living out while you're at work, while you're at school. Because it is a wonderful testimony when you're able to see a believer showing the love of God, the power of Christ outside of the worship setting. And so that's what we want to deal with today on Theology on Thursday. Faith to work, faith at work, and faith that works. We'll be right back.
There's a unique way of telling any story, and words matter. Not just the words themselves, but how you use those words. Things like rhythm, cadence, rhyming, alliteration, the kinds of things that cause people to lean in and say, wait a minute, could you say that again? I want to make sure I heard that right. In our program, you will learn not what to say, but also how to say it, and what are the best ways for a variety of people to be able to hear it. Some of us will have the opportunity to speak God's truth in communities that are like the ones we grew up in. Many of us will be called to communities very different than we are familiar with. This degree and the community of students that you will share your learnings with will include people from different denominations, different areas across the country, even different people around the world, because God's family is every nation, every tongue, and every tribe. Come, learn to speak God's truth in a microcosm of the kingdom of God.
All right, as you know, our theme for the day is faith at work, faith to work, and faith that works. How is it that we can encourage people to live out that faithful life? And before you heard me in my own thoughts about today's episode theme, how it just is important for us as pastors, ecclesial leaders, to make sure that we are doing the things that help our people that are occupying the pews, the seats, the virtual space, live out faithful lives every day. And that maybe the concentration is not necessarily Sunday only, but that the real concentration is Monday through Saturday. With that in mind, I could think of no better person come on and have a conversation about how we get our people to live out faithful lives than Pastor Martin D. Odom. Martin is a father, a husband, business person, and really is from preacher, teacher. Martin, for me, is really a thought leader in this area of how we really help people live out faithful lives every single day. So, Martin, thank you for joining us on Theology on Thursday. I got to ask you, like I opened up, how do we get people to live out those faithful lives Monday through Saturday?
Thank you for having me, Micah. I'm glad to be here and to talk about. We talk all the time, and
Yep.
but I'm glad to be on the podcast and to talk about these issues. And I think that I spend I spend a lot of time thinking about these issues, how to make the life of faith real for people in their live experience. And I think that we do it kind of one step at a time. And I think that there's no cookie cutter, there's no one way to do it. But I think that by providing opportunities to for people um, to to exercise their faith, and when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that it has to be some big, some big thing,
Mm-hmm.
some big thing, but sometimes in taking the small risks that require faith, that that people begin to build capacity and confidence in seeing what what God will do. And I think also by teaching and preaching and modeling and living with people that faith is not always just for emergencies. That
Wow.
that faith is not something, that we tap into, that what we really God, the it calls us to do. The essence of the scripture to me is that for us to live a life of faith.
Hmm.
And you know that when we treat faith as something that we need only in case of emergency, something that we break the glass
Wow.
for, and
Yeah.
we'll break glass, use your faith. But no, we need faith all the time. I remember when my daughters are 23 and 20,
Man, we're getting
like
old.
your boys.
We
Yes.
are getting old, Martin.
And I remember
Oof.
when my daughters were, when my oldest girl started driving, Maya, and she was a senior in high school, and my youngest daughter, Samantha, was a freshman in high school. And so I got her a little car to drive, and the two of them were going to the same school, and the two of them would walk out of the house every morning driving to school. And this is my whole operation, Micah, in one car. And we all know how fast things happen in a
Yeah.
car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all know how, drivers, how crazy it is out there. And the school wasn't even very far. But every morning, this is what's playing in my mind. My whole operation is going out the door in
In a
one car.
car.
And so every morning, they didn't know, every morning, when they would walk out the door, I would stretch my hand to the door, and
Mm.
I would I would pray, and I would ask God to protect my daughters and to keep my daughters covered. And it through the whole year, it happened, and the Lord did just that. And so it wasn't an emergency situation. It wasn't a big thing. It was just a little bit every day. And I think that it required me to trust God, that God was going to have His hand on my daughters. And that those both of those girls have traveled around the world. They've done semesters abroad, and I I found that to be. But I found that praying for them, I found that I can't go with them everywhere they go, but my
Yeah.
prayers can go with them. My prayers can meet them there, can beat them there.
Yeah.
And so I found that for me, like, I think that in terms of sharing that with other people, like that for me, providing real life examples of how I have to implement faith in my life every day, in small ways. And I also think that's useful for people to apply that to their own lives. And I also think that it's like, if you go to lift up, if you just go in the gym and you want to bench press 400 pounds, you're not just walking in the gym fresh off the street.
Right.
You
You got
you
to work
you
up to that.
you got to work up to it. And I think that our faith is a muscle and a weapon. And often threaten the devil and say, don't make me unleash my faith on this thing, because
Mm.
my faith will overkill. And,
Right.
so
Right.
I think that sharing real life examples of how we have to have faith in our everyday lives helps other people to realize, okay, it's not always this big thing, that it can be something as small as your children's ride to school.
Now you already threw out a couple of nuggets which we're gonna have to extrapolate and stretch out and bring some more clarity and definition to. The first one I want to talk about is faith as a muscle. Man, great line. Talk about how we need to see our faith as a muscle.
Well, a muscle is I think it works both ways. In other words, if you don't use a muscle, it's going to atrophy, right? It's going
Right.
it's
That's right.
going to it's going to become weak. It's going to and it won't serve its purpose when you need it. Years ago, years ago, when I was pastoring the church we both pastored, Bethel Church
In
Harris.
Harrisburg.
And so years ago, when I was pastoring in Harrisburg, I had a doctor, Dr. Wheeler. Dr. was talking to me about exercise
Okay.
and the need to exercise. And I'll never forget this example that Dr. Willard gave me. He was kind of a quirky guy, old guy, but he was one of my favorite doctors I ever had. And Dr. Willard said, "Listen, this is why you need to go exercise." He said, um, "Something as simple as a flat tire on your car." He said, "You can get a flat tire on your car, and you get outside to change the tire, and just the act of jacking up the car, lifting the tire off the lug, r- getting the tire out of the trunk, putting the new tire on, bring the car back." He said, if your heart is not strong, just something as simple as that can give you a heart attack
Yeah.
because you haven't exercised the muscle. And I never forgot that example. And I'll tell
That's a
you what,
great example.
it's a great example, and I'll tell you what, like,
Yeah.
when we don't exercise our faith and we don't trust God in the little things, how can I trust God for big things if I won't trust God for little things? And so
Yeah.
so
It,
so so
it's almost like saying if I don't use my faith muscle, boy, I'm gonna
yeah,
be under attack.
no, yeah, yeah,
I'm susceptible I'm susceptible to an attack. I'm susceptible to a spiritual attack, really,
to a
if I'm not
spiritual
going to
attack.
exercise and use my faith.
Yeah, and something as simple that and it will become overwhelmed by things, right?
Mm.
Stuff that we should just take in stride, that stuff that we should be able to do easily or handle easily will become overwhelming.
Martin, let me add to that because just recently was watching US Open and they were talking about Coco Golf and she's got a new strengthening coach and her memory muscle. And I
Yeah,
played tennis a little while. And so I
yeah,
know it really is about memory muscle, getting into that where it's just naturally in your mind of how you
yeah,
step on the line, how you position yourself, how you lob the ball, how you reach out. So memory muscle.
yeah.
Are we having a problem with our memory muscles when it comes to faith in 2025?
I definitely think that we have a problem with our muscle memory when it comes to faith in 2025, and I think that you know Carrie Newhoff coined the term. Maybe he didn't coin it, but he's the first person I heard say it. He was talking on a podcast about the use of AI in
Hmm.
the and he said one of the dangers of AI is a thing he called cognitive obesity. Cognitive obesity. In other words, because we have the AI that can do all of this stuff for us, then our mind becomes obese, like out
Mm-hmm.
of shape, right?
Right.
And I
Out
think
of shape.
that there's that in addition to cognitive obesity, that there is the possibility of having faith obesity, that
Yeah.
of that that if we don't have to, if it's always, it's like the thing that people come say to us, pray for me, right? I don't mind praying for you. I'm happy to pray for you. I pray for you whether you ask me or not. That's my job as the pastor.
But that
You're
ain't
my
my
praying
question,
friend.
though. It might be. It's what I do, but
Yeah,
my
yeah.
question is, did you pray for yourself?
Yeah, yeah. At some point, you know what I mean? Like if you gonna wait at 2 o'clock in the morning, when the late in the midnight, you can't call me. I'm asleep.
I know that's right.
You you
I
got to
know that's
have
right.
yeah, you got to have your own faith. So I think that what we recently launched a Tuesday morning prayer call called Terrific Tuesdays at 7:30 in the morning, because I'm trying to encourage the people to have their own, to have their own prayer life. When
Prayer
I
life.
listen, Craig Groeschel, Charles Duhigg talks about keystone habits, and the keystone habit is a habit that triggers other positive
That's what.
habits,
Yeah.
right? And so for me, my morning devotional time is my keystone habit. I feel like I'm wearing my bulletproof vest when I have my morning devotional time consistently. And so I'm trying to, I want to share it with my people now that spending time with God in the morning is such a keystone
It's
habit.
essential.
It
It's an
triggers
essential
everything else.
element. And whether you do it in the morning, the
Yeah,
midday, or at night, there
yeah,
has
yeah,
to be that moment. It's again going back to faith as a muscle. It's that moment when you're going to work out with God.
yeah, yeah,
You're going to work out your faith
yeah,
and
yeah. Gonna
strengthen
work out.
yourself. You're going to strengthen yourself in that moment. Martin, the other piece that you of the nuggets that you've already talked about this morning that we could keep having these conversations about is risk.
Yeah,
Oh man, have we not developed this tendency to be so safe that we're really not operating in faith, that we're really operating in just the normalcy of life?
yeah, yeah. I definitely, I definitely think so. But I mean, I mean, you faith is not for the sidelines. I mean, faith is for the, you know what I mean? uh, I think that uh, yes, we are risk averse, and there are many reasons.
Mhm.
Having been burned before, right? Having been hurt, having tried and failed, fear of embarrassment.
Mhm.
People knowing your business, all those
Right.
kind
That's
of
right.
things. But I think that um uh the that it is, despite all of those things, that God continues to require. I was reading A.W. Tozer the other day, and he was talking about Abraham, and he was talking about how God brings all of us to those moments of testing, and that required, when Abraham had to sacrifice, when it was required to
I,
sacrifice Isaac.
Isaac. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that, so I think that whether we want to or not, whether we embrace it or lean into it, or not, that there is always going to be an element of risk that requires us to unleash our faith in small and big ways.
Yeah. I think that risk piece, I've said that you can't have faith without fear. Like for me, they cannot there is no separate. They coexist simultaneously. My fear of whatever really pushes and ignites my faith to accelerate at a level so that it overshadows my fear,
Right.
and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
willing to trust God in the process, right? Um, and so, that whole notion of fear of failure. And I think, Martin, I wonder, do we do a disservice um, from our churches, from our organizations, when we don't talk about the failures, when we don't talk about the setbacks and the tragedies, where we try to just gloss over them and move on to the next time? Aren't those important opportunities for us to learn from?
It's oh man, Micah, it is so vital. It is so important to be, it's a fine line, because you want to be transparent and honest without being, without bleeding on people.
Right.
And so I think that especially as a leader, that is but it is important to, frame to frame failure as opportunity, to learn. you know Paul says, I've learned in whatever state I am in to
Hmm.
be content. He said, in other words, is I got it from experience. I learned it from the experiences
Yeah.
that I had. And people, I think that people know that. I think that social media makes us, you feel like we have to always portray. They've done studies about it, how these young girls are like all depressed, all upset because they see these images on
Images all the time. Yeah.
Instagram of these people who seem like they're like the only thing they do is go on vacation, and the only thing they do is eat these
New cars and
buy new cars and eat these
shopping
elaborate
somewhere.
lunch and shopping
Right.
somewhere across the world somewhere. And I think that that really brings up the danger of comparison and then feeling inadequate. So talking about failures, talking about the lessons we learned, but it's hard. If for any of us, it's hard to fail in public.
It's
It's
one of it's one of my yeah, it's hard to feel in public. It's one of my angst with the book of Acts.
hmm
The book of Acts portrays the church as always successful.
yeah, 3,000 souls. Yeah,
Like nothing goes wrong. And even if it goes wrong, it is quickly, it's a miracle. It's an opportunity, but it never gives us the unfortunate losses or tragedies or whatever
yeah,
however you want to coin it.
yeah.
And I think it gives us a misrepresentation of the church. The church is going to make mistakes. We are human. We are going to fail. One of my most funniest, well, it's not funny, but it's true. One of my that I remind church leaders all the time is when it comes to the church failing, Richard Allen didn't win the first vote to be bishop of the AME church.
Huh? Yeah.
You start the thing. Come on, Martin. You start the thing. You are the face of the thing. You have organized the thing, and you don't win the first vote.
And you don't win the first vote.
And
Yeah.
we gloss over it. And I have later on in my years come back to really look at that as really the impetus on why Allen was able to take the AME church to the next level, because that loss was there. Whatever it may have been, that's a whole nother conversation around the politics of it. But I'm just saying that's loss.
That's loss. And one of our favorite preachers, Dr. William D. Watley, has a famous sermon, what to do when the vote doesn't go your way.
Oh, yes, sir.
About that election that Jesus lost, that vote that he would give us Barabbas.
Man, one of my, I think, that's one of my two favorite Watley sermons. Okay, the other one is Acts 29, where he preaches that Acts 29 is that the Holy Spirit is still writing new chapters and still doing new work. But those are two great, amongst many of the great William D. Watley sermons in the world. Yeah.
The list is long. Voluminous.
That list? We ain't got enough. Listen, we can die.
Yeah.
I think it is what Watley could really be the curriculum for a preaching class.
For sure. For more than one class. I took him at Princeton Seminary.
Okay.
He taught a class of preaching biblical stewardship.
Okay.
And the only books he used were his books. He was
that is a William D. Watley move.
I got an A in that class from him. That was one of my favorite classes in seminary. It was so good. Like, he could be a whole preaching, not just a class. He could be a whole curriculum. His approach and yeah.
Yeah. He was always, we're telling on ourselves. It's a podcast, which is what you're supposed to do. I think he has always been the one person in the room when I preached that I have always wanted to just know, man, how did I do?
Yeah.
Not my grandfather, not the bishop, nobody else. I want to know from Bill Watley. And I never forget, I preached at Founders Day in the 1st District. And man, when I came off the stage, he said, Micah, you did a good job. You did a good job. And then he went to, but you could have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, because that's what he is. He is preaching personified, and
I
so
call him a scientist. I call him the scientist. He's a scientist. Like,
yeah,
yeah, he's
yeah,
always gonna, yeah, have another twist, another turn, another
yeah,
angle, another look that
yeah,
you could.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's that. But yeah, you a whole class on how he can literally see into text and move text in ways that really explore how we live. And this is a great segue to this, because I think one of the powerful testimonies of Bill Watley and people alike is that I heard you say this earlier, model, right? They're going to model it. And so what do we do as ecclesial leaders? How do we live out faith past Sunday? Because we put a lot in Sunday. We put so much in Sunday. Sunday naps are a requirement, right?
Nothing like it. Nothing better than that Sunday after church nap.
Man, listen. So what do we do? What do we do? What do you recommend? What have you done over your lifespan to help live that out past Sunday?
So I think that for going back to my personal devotional time, like I think that I work on I try to model what living a life of faith looks like. Like I work on my relationship with God, and I talk about my relationship with God, in addition to all the stuff that we have to do as pastors.
Right, right.
Visit sick people, check in on people, pray with people. I try to. There are areas in my life, because as you said, I'm a husband. I've been married for 25 years this year. I'm a father. I got those two girls. So I mean, there are areas in my life where I need God. I mean, like being a parent, is such a vulnerable thing. I mean,
Yeah,
like it is such a vulnerable thing that you need, especially when your children become adults. I mean,
yeah,
like that is such a
yeah. I
transition.
thought it was gonna get better the older they got. It's got worse. I'm gonna be honest, y'all. It gets worse.
Yeah, it's such a vulnerable thing. Like, so I mean, I realize that the things that I'm going, the real life things that I'm experiencing, that I'm working through with God, are the same things that the people who are sitting in the pews are working through with God.
Mhm.
So I feel like talking about, not necessarily some from the pulpit, but also just in the in between conversations, talking about those things, and how I'm processing and working through them with God, talking about it. If you bringing those examples in to Bible class, that I think that it helps people process in their in their own mind, how to how to process that, and how to live out their faith in their everyday life. And I also think that being a person of faith in everyday life, like because as you mentioned, I'm a business person. I sell car myself, a car dealer, and so people come in the car dealer. It's so funny. People come to the car dealer. I know you have some experience with this. You
Mhm.
come to the car dealer, and they have such a negative connotation. They have such a negative, what I mean? Like they have such a negative, and it's so what's so funny is when I first started working at the car dealership, car dealers who have a horrible, connotation and recommendation, the stuff that the guys used to say to me as as, as a preacher, the connotation that they used to say, the stuff that as that
Yep.
as a preacher, their connotation of preachers. So I think that um, being being a person of integrity, and who models that has it helped me with my client base, but also with the guys at the dealership, but also being a man of faith who also sells cars, has helped the church people understand that not everybody is like you can't just put people into a cookie cutter in a
Yeah.
category and say because this person does this that they're a good or a bad person.
Right. Right.
That we're complicated.
Yeah.
We're
We are.
not we're
We
not one
are.
dimensional people. Lettuce says these are the pieces of me, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's pieces to us, and I think that weaving my relationship with God, my walk with God, through all of those pieces of me, I think is something that we all have to do.
I think you hit on part of our theme for today is faith at work, and it's a nice term that has double meaning. It's faith at work that is actually working in your daily life, but it also faith at work that many of the people who occupy our pews or chairs work. Right.
Right.
And there's a whole theology of work that I don't want to get into today, but there is this essence, they go to work. And so if there is any place that you ought to be operating in faith and showing your faith, have your faith at work, should be at work. And so you just mentioned car dealership. Both of us have been in that field and know the difficulties that brings from an ethics and an accountability standpoint. And so for our viewers and our listeners on this podcast, what would you recommend to help people live out their faith at work? Because work can be a dangerous ground, not dangerous in the fact that you'll get killed, but dangerous in reference to the attacks that you will get on your spirituality in places of employment.
So I think three things. I think that there's one. I think that one thing is there's the faith at work there, that recognizing that the enemy is always looking for an opportunity to point and say there is always looking for that explosion.
Right.
I'm
Right,
always
right,
looking
right.
for that. For us to that the enemy is always looking for it. We always think it's people, right? But we know that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, right? So the enemy is always looking for an opportunity to accuse the brethren, right? So I think that being conscious and aware of the fact that we can't be like everybody else. We're not like everybody else, but we can. What I mean, like it's so. I'm the pastor wherever I go. So I'm the pastor of Mount Zion Church, but I'm also the pastor of the car dealership. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
Like so everywhere I go, I know that when they see me, they see the
Here come the
pastor. They call me
pastor.
the pastor. Even when I wasn't pastoring, even when I took a break from pastoring, they still call.
They know you as a pastor.
They know who I am. And they know you if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, if you're a person of faith. You know what I mean? They're always looking. So I think that you have there's being aware of that element, but there's also that our faith. It is my faith that helps me
Mm,
deal because there are gonna be workplace bullies. There are gonna be mean people. There are gonna be people who jump to the wrong conclusion, who come in and but like it used to really irritate me when people would come in my office, sit down in my office. You came to the car dealership to buy the car. You're sitting in my office in front of me, and now you're going to sit here and accuse me of lying to you. You haven't even met me. You don't even know my last name, and you're sitting here accusing me of telling you a lie. We 5 minutes into the conversation because I'm a car. So it used to really aggravate me, but now what I mean, like over time, I've adjusted to it.
yeah,
My faith has been able to help me to be
it's
able
not
to.
you personally. It's just what they say. The three worst days in a person's life is going to the dentist, going to the car dealership, and going
Yeah,
to court.
and going to court. That's it. And so but the other thing, going back to that personal devotional time, Micah, like I said, for me, when I spent that time with God in the morning, man, it says, I was reading the 1 Year Bible. Bishop John Bryant is has turned all of us on to the one
All
year
of us, because
Bible.
y'all finally got me there. I was like, okay, I'm in.
So I was in my 1 Year Bible today. I like the New Living Translation of the 1 Year Bible, and
Mm,
I like the New Living Translation. And so that's what I do in the 1 year. And I was in the 1 year today, and it was Paul was in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, 10 and 11, and he was talking about this brother he had an issue with, and he said you have to forgive him, and when you forgive him, I'm going to forgive him. And he said because we know. that the enemy, we're not going to give the enemy an opportunity to outsmart us. I
Right.
like
Right.
living trans. That's exactly what he said. We're not going to let the enemy outsmart
Outsmart us. Mhm.
right? And so it struck me that forgiveness, right? Carrying grudges, being mad at somebody forever. You know what I mean? Like in addition to all the inner damage that it does, the cancer that it puts on it's your spirit, right? It gives the enemy an opportunity to outsmart us. So I when I get little nuggets like that during my morning devotional time, as I say, I feel like I'm have on my bulletproof vest. I had it yesterday. We had the prayer call, right?
Mhm.
Prayer call. So I had a lady, she was coming to buy a car. She was all set. I've sold her and her husband many cars down through the years. So I'm going to work with my mind already on the fact that I had already know I have a car sold yesterday, right?
Mhm.
And yesterday I'm on my way and I'm going there early so I can be ready.
Get
Not,
it ready.
and I get this text message and it says, "Oh, you know what? Instead of I'm just gonna go ahead and replace the tires on my car. I'm not gonna trade it. I'm gonna keep it in." So I was disappointed. But you know what? I didn't have a meltdown, because I wasn't mad. I wasn't cursing her. I wasn't, like because I had spent time with God and in the morning. And when you spend time with God, it just changes you. And not all at once. Joe Robb said something to me the other day that blessed my soul. He said the incremental becomes monument.
Mm.
And that daily time with God, it incrementally it accrues to a monumental impact.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's time that is well spent.
Yeah.
And I agree. I agree with Joe that later on it just has a tremendous impact. We don't go crazy like we used to when we were younger. Like, okay, we just go, okay, and just move on.
And just,
Before we wanna, why
yeah,
did it
yeah.
happen? And blah blah blah. Blah. Who was
Yeah.
the cause of this? And that wait, we're gonna stop everything until we figure this out. Man, please.
I've
I'm not
been
doing
there.
that.
I have been there. Yeah, guilty.
We ain't doing that no more. We're like, okay, all right. Thank God I spent some time with the Lord. I've developed greater
Yeah,
patience. And so I'm ready to
yeah,
move forward in my day. And
yeah.
obviously this is in the divine plan of God. This wasn't supposed to happen. That means probably that something else. My faith is telling me something else is probably gonna happen. So great, let's go.
Let's go.
It is it's this is a journey, and I think we we slightly do a disservice from the pulpit and the office when we aren't sharing our own journeys.
Yeah.
You know,
And reflecting on how God has worked it out, how
yeah,
God uses things, you know what I mean? God uses things to work it out.
yeah,
Like we look back and we say, "Oh man, I was really upset when that happened," but you know, now I see God in
yeah, 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 yeah.
it.
It's like you go crazy, like you can't stand all things work together for the good.
Yeah.
Drives you bananas
Yeah.
until it actually starts manifesting itself in your life and you begin to look back and go, yeah, God does know what God is doing. You mentioned Joe. I'm sure 40 years ago, right, Martin? None of, I'm sure Joe didn't think he'd be in California. I
Right.
didn't think I'd be in Florida. You probably didn't think you'd be in Maryland. We all had this. Joe be in New York, Martin will be in New Jersey, Mike will be in
Right.
Philly.
Right.
We're all
Right.
good for the rest. You you just never know
Never know.
what truly what God is up to. And so for those that are watching, those that are listening, hey, allow your faith to really encourage you to trust God in the process. Don't There's going to be a moment after the moment. Focus
Yeah.
on the next moment, not the moment that is already, not working for you.
Absolutely. I think my pastor in the United Methodist Church, Dr. C. Anthony Hunt, he during when we were going through COVID, before I went back to pastoring, when I was just on the staff at church,
Mm,
going back to COVID, he started using a term that we have to prepare for the not the new normal, but the next normal. And the thing that like when we went through the pandemic, everybody said, "Oh, we got to adjust to the new normal," but that infers that, okay, this is what's going to be the new thing, and now we can just settle into this. But I'm finding that life is not that way. The church certainly not that way in the church anymore.
Yeah,
That it's the next normal. It's whatever is, what I mean. Like there's this, but then the next normal is going to be this, and the next normal is going to be this, and so we just have to have the mental and spiritual elasticity to adjust and
just yeah.
and handle whatever the next normal is.
Yeah, I think when we really go back and really assess the pieces from COVID, I think if anything we ought to value, it should have adjusted all of our mindsets
Yeah, yeah,
to understanding, man, anything could happen at any moment.
at any moment.
And there
Yeah,
is always going to be a new normal. And that, allow your faith to move you into that space, cover you in that space, so
yeah,
that you are able to work out what your new, what your new normal is. And even thinking about it, Martin, every time we evolve as individuals,
yeah,
when we get married, there's a new normal, right?
yeah,
When
yeah,
we
yeah,
have kids, there's a new normal.
yeah, yeah,
When we start aging, there's a new normal. When you've got to
yeah,
start taking care of aging family members, it's another new normal.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
When you relocate, it's another new normal. We
yeah.
are oftentimes going through new normals, and we just have never said it that way. But in reality, that's what it's been. It's
That's
been
that's
new
what.
normals.
Yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Yeah, it's not. It's right. That is what it's been. One of the books that I am reading, Micah, is by called "Taking the Next Step" by
Mm.
Lovett Weems, and a longtime writer about church and church issues, church growth, all that. And he tells a story about this pastor who said who went out to said that when he and all his friends left seminary, they thought that they were going out to change the world, and
Woo.
but what they didn't take in account is along the way that the world changed. So the ground is always shifting under our feet.
Man, I think that story is the story of our crew. Like we were
We
gonna
thought we
go
were going
out
to change the world.
and change the world. And
We would
man,
look
we
at
did.
those old guys and be like, "Oh man, they don't know."
They don't know nothing. We gonna be able to do this, that, and the other. Da 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 da. Don't watch what we do. And
Yeah,
little did we know, the
yeah,
world was gonna change right
bro.
up under us. I, it is truly that. Listen, so I want to go out here with you, and thanks for being here. This has been great. The As you just heard, Martin probably has already talked about 4 or 5 books, and we'll make sure we put them in the chat so you guys will know, because usually he's going to give me a new book a week. I think he and Bishop Frank Reed are good for another book, which is why I have a whole bunch of
Yeah,
them. A
yeah.
bunch of them at the top there, Reset, and all. Those are Martin Odom recommendation books. Like he's always, reading and always recommended. And I think he is.
I wish I could. I wish I was as good of a reader as Bishop Frank Reed. He's voluminous. He's I'm a strong reader, but man, that Bishop Reed.
Man, and what a book collection he has. But anyway, we can talk about that. So Martin is always recommending books, and a number of them that he's recommended already today are must reads. I'm telling you, whether you are a pastor or a church leader or just a regular person who has a relationship with God, they are worth reading. The learning and the instruction are critical, Martin, I know, for you in your pastoral theology. If there is one thing you would recommend to us, and this is not going to be the last thing because I just thought about something else. If there was something you were going to recommend for us to look at teaching or developing in these days and times in 2025 from a church perspective, what would it be?
For pastors, I
pastors?
think
Huh?
I think that if there was one thing, you're not talking about a particular book, you're talking about one idea. I
Yeah,
think
one
that
idea,
we
concept. Mhm.
I think that I don't remember where I read it. I'm gonna go back. I know I sound like a one trick pony, but it convicted me recently for a pastor. Prayer is the work. Prayer is the work.
My Achilles, boy. It's my Achilles.
Prayer is the work. Like so much. One thing I started doing recently, Micah, is I've always journaled down through the years, but now I keep a journal with me when I pray while I'm praying, so that I write down like my morning prayer time. I'll pray. I'll intercede for people. I'll start singing. I'll
Mhm.
pray in tongues. Write something down. I'll stop and look up a scripture and go back and then go back to praying. Like, so I think that people sometimes have an idea that prayer has to be this one long continuous,
Yeah, yeah.
thing. But your prayer time can be praying, it can be singing, it can be talking to God, listening to God, journal writing, whatever so for me, the prayer is the work. Like my 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 most success in ministry. I'll tell you a quick story. I don't want it all the time. Recently, like our church, which is a United Methodist Church, the Frozen Chosen. I mean, like it's been Pentecost in there. It really has been. And I had a musician that was playing for me, filling in while my musician was out. Back in I guess the early part of this year, February. So, and he was coming to church late. He was late, and one Sunday he was late, and so um, because he was late, I started praying before we started service. I just got up and started praying. And like people didn't know what was going on. They were still talking and moving around and like they were like, they were like, what is he,
Yeah,
I
what's
just
he
started
doing?
praying. I just kept praying. But let me tell you something. It shifted the atmosphere so much. I liked it so much. I came back the second week and did it again. And then I kept doing it. Then after my musician came back and he's always on time, I still kept doing it. To this day. We still do so that the people in our church now, they would look at me crazy if I didn't get up and pray. So we pray before we do the
Anything.
doxology, before we do anything. I just get up on the mic and pray. I don't even say hello. At 11 o'clock, I just get on the mic and start praying. I mean, just going for it, praying, and like it has so shifted the atmosphere in our church. I mean, and if you pray like that in your house, over your children, over your workplace situation, whatever the case may be, the prayer is the work. Like that's that has been for me what I mean, like
Yeah,
I
that's
I
good.
love read, I love all of the strategies, I love all of the technology. We just signed up for Text in Church. We got the church conference one for free conference call. You name it, we
We
got the
got it, right.
technology. I love it, but man, prayer is the work.
Yep. Okay, so people from Bethel who are watching this and people who check out our broadcast, now you know where I got it from. Okay. So Martin shared that with me, and I then started to do the same thing.
You stole that. You are such a thief. You are.
We we on a phone call. So because of that, I then started just to get up on Sunday morning. Martin at Bethel, welcome the folk, and then I just go to pray. And you are right. It shifted the atmosphere to where then the transition into our praise and worship moment, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is,
It's crazy. Yeah.
and this is great for pastors. I have watched more people now try to be on time for church than
Yeah.
ever in my
Yeah.
pastoral career, ever,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because they know like something might break out right at the beginning.
Right. Breakout. Right. It was Sunday, Micah. We didn't even get to the scripture. I had to open up the altar call, but we went from prayer to praise and worship, and right after the prayer chant, it broke out, and I had to open up the altar. It was crazy.
Wow.
Is
Yeah.
that but here's the crazy part about it, Micah, about how I say how we got to look back and see how God was in it. Man, I was so mad at that guy coming late. I was like, man, I should cut his pay. I should, I was like,
Right.
I didn't do any of that. I was, I was aggravated. But had he not done that, had he
Yeah.
not
That piece of starting and going and praying, yeah, would have
right,
never.
it wasn't an idea that I had. It wasn't a strategy that I read. It was out of the necessity of the
Yeah.
moment that I was just trying to buy a few extra minutes that
Yeah.
I started doing that. And it has been such a blessing to me and to our church.
Yeah, I would say to pastors, live in every moment because there is probably a teachable thing coming out of some of
Yeah.
the moments you are going to not like.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think some of the best things that have emerged in my pastoral career have emerged out of bad situations.
Bad situation.
You just and the next thing you know, it worked. All right, we're getting out of here on this one, Martin, because I got to ask you. Give me your top four. Give me your Mount Rushmore of preachers.
Oh man.
You want me? I'll just go in your lifetime. I'll keep it in your lifetime. Give me your Mount Rushmore.
That's so hard to do, but I'll give you four of my favorite. I mean, I'm starting with Samuel DeWitt Proctor.
Sure.
And because he was my mentor, he was my first, he literally took me by the hand from the time of my trial sermon and coached me and taught me. And what I love, why he is one of my favorites is that in addition to what he did for me, which he did for so many other people, I know I'm not exclusive of that. But is it his homespun storytelling, his
Yeah.
homespun way of, of drawing you in, like you're sitting on grandpa's knee and he just, like he just had a homespun way of, of getting you to a place, getting you to that aha moment, and that, like that blessed me there. And he and while talking about real stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, William D. Watley, is, like for like as a practitioner of the craft of preaching, and as a student of the craft of preaching, like he's just got to be there. I mean, like he's just what he does, what he does just for me is just like, what I mean? Like he just does, like he, he preached my mother's funeral,
Mm-hmm.
my mother, St. James.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, like he changed, he changed sitting there in the pew, listening to him preach my mother's funeral changed the way I preached eulogies ever since then, because that was in 2006. And I ever since that day, every time I've had to do a eulogy, I have wanted to do for people sitting in the pew listening to me what he did for me sitting in the pew listening to him.
Yeah.
Like it just, I've wanted to be able to make to bring that kind of comfort um to someone in on the worst day of their life, um is like, so I mean, if if for no aside from all of his voluminous, like he that for me, I got it. Bishop Jakes, Bishop Jakes, for just like for me, the inside outedness of his preaching. Like to me, Jakes is a guy that will preach you inside out. Like if you turn, strip away all of the,
All the stuff. Yeah.
strip away all of this stuff, and that guy can rightly divide the word of truth.
One of the
That
best
guy,
storytellers of all time.
that guy goes inside of the scripture exegesis text and just and brings it to light, brings it out, and look, and you sit there, you say, where did he get that from?
Yeah.
How did he see that? Same thing with Watley. Like, how did he see that in that
And
scripture?
Proctor. And
Yeah,
Proctor.
and Proctor, same thing.
Yeah,
Where did that come?
we see your
Yeah,
trajectory, by the way. I see the trajectory you're going. So
yeah,
I'm interested in who
yeah.
number 4 is because I see the trajectory.
But it's probably going to surprise you. It's got to be Gardner, or it's got to be Gardner Taylor.
Well, that doesn't surprise. I mean,
Or
again,
got it,
great
got it.
storytellers.
Story, and just the voluminous, you know what I mean? Like, to hear him preach is one thing. To read, I don't know if you've read those
Oh
Ed Taylor,
man, time and time. Are you kidding me?
but to read, his mind, his inside. Dr. Proctor, what Dr. Proctor used to say about Gardner Taylor. They wrote a book together.
Yeah.
They were great friends. I don't know if people know that, but they were great friends. And what Dr. Proctor said, and Gardner preached his Dr. Proctor's eulogy, and he said he used to describe Gardner. He said his mind was encyclopedic. He
Mm,
he had an encyclopedic mind.
mm.
Like, for me, Gardner Taylor, who was such a different type of preacher
Yeah.
than those guys. He's so
But
nuanced.
the storytelling,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I can see the trajectory. That's why
yeah,
saying Taylor did not surprise me on that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those guys, I mean, if pressed to the wall, there's so many
Yeah.
great, there's so many great preachers who I love. Many women. I'm not trying to negate anybody. There's so many great preachers who I love great preaching. We talk about preaching all the time.
All the
I
time.
love nothing I love more than to hear a good sermon. Not to preach a good sermon. Nothing I love more than to hear a good sermon. So there's so many great preachers I love. But press to the wall, if I had to pick out one, for me personally, that's who I would. Yeah.
I had to. It's just part. It's part of the format of the show. I'm always asking people for their Mount Rushmore of something,
Yeah.
and because
Yeah.
you and I talk preaching all the time, I was like, "Yep, okay, let me get your Mount Rushmore." But that's a great list. He is Martin D. Odom, pastor, thought leader, innovator, business leader, father, husband. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today on Theology on Thursday. And listen, if there is something that happened in this conversation today that sparked something in you and on you, please share it. Share it with somebody you love, and make sure you join us again on next Thursday for another episode of Theology on Thursday, because this is where deep faith meets real talk. Conversations that connect theology to the world we live in. I'm Dr. Micah C. Sims, and until next time, keep the faith and keep it real. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you for